first wave of free agency was pretty awesome for Denver. They made some good signings. I was a big fan of a lot of the moves they made. And after seeing a contract detail or two from some of these signings, I like it even more because they went out and they got guys like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Evan Engram. But people might look at those contracts as risky investments given, fairly so, torn Achilles, torn ACL, missed half the year with a soft tissue injury, all happening in the last 24 months. So I could understand some people having a little bit of reservations and some skepticism for following these signings. But after seeing the contract details for, say, Dre Greenlaw, who signed a 3-year, $31.5 million contract with $13.5 million guaranteed, but when you look under the hood, you'll see, okay, but of that $13.5 million guaranteed, $2 million is injury guaranteed money for 2026. So you take away $2 million from $13.5. This is a 1-year, $11.5 million contract if you want it to be. If Greenlaw doesn't look like he's got himself back to pre-injury form, you're not out $31.5 million. You're out $11.5 million. That's all that he is owed. There is no guaranteed money in his contract for the last 2 years of it outside of $2 million for injuries in 2026. You could move on from him if you really wanted to after one season with $6.5 million in cap space and $4.3 million in dead money. This is a terrific signing and great contract structure by George and Sean Payton. They have put themselves in a good spot with an easy exit if they really need to, but if they don't need to get out of the contract because Greenlaw is playing super duper well, they've got an incredible value of a top-tier linebacker, in my opinion, who was just overshadowed by bigger names like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and a guy like Talanoa Hufanga, but still put up really good production and really good stats. Don't look at 2024. He missed pretty much all of it recovering from the Achilles injury he suffered in the Super Bowl of 2023. Take a closer look at the 2023 numbers, right? 1.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 4 QB hits. His coverage, by the way, is one of his best calling cards. And with the NFL adopting more 3 wide receiver sets, more tight ends really being a wide receiver for a team, you need linebackers who can run up and down the field with guys. This is no longer 1980s, right? You don't need linebackers just to stop the run. They have to be able to keep up with receivers and tight ends and running backs. And in 2023, when Greenlaw was healthy for almost every single game, pretty much every single game minus the second half of the Super Bowl, look at his PFF grades. Ranked 23rd out of 82. The previous year, by the way, ranked top 10. 73.1, coverage 79.5, run defense 68.3. I believe Greenlaw is going to get a second contract with the Broncos. I feel that confident about this signing. I've always been a fan of his work, and I've always felt like he was an underappreciated linebacker. So I am forecasting this is going to be a terrific signing by Denver, that they're going to want more of 57 or whatever number he picks for Denver, and he's going to get a contract extension or re-signed before those 3 years are up. That's how confident I am about this move. But if I'm totally wrong and he doesn't bounce back from the Achilles injury and he's not very good, you're at $11.5 million. That's what's guaranteed for him this year. None after that. Now, if you like the Broncos signing so far, hit that thumbs up button down below if you haven't already. Trying to get this channel over 500 likes on today's episode. So make sure you always click the thumbs up today and anytime you tune into a video if you enjoy the free content. Sorry, I was about to say contract. Contract content on the mind. So now let's talk about another contract, and that is Evan Engram, who signed a 2-year, $23 million deal with $16.5 million guaranteed. This is not structured like Greenlaw, where there is an emergency exit, if you will, after one season. There's a good amount of guaranteed money awaiting him in 2026. So unlike Greenlaw, where it's basically a 1-year contract, this is a 2-year contract. If it's really bad in year 1, you could get out of it, but there'd be $9 million in dead money. There's not a whole lot to save with just 6.5 versus the dead. So I think we should look at this as a 2-year deal. That is what it is in my eyes. So let's discuss more about Engram, because last year missed a good chunk of the season with a hamstring injury, a soft tissue injury that just could not help keep him off the field. And you go back to 2023, I always think it's a typo when we see this. He really had 114 receptions. Talk about being a quarterback's best friend. That is someone that Bo Nix needs. Someone that Nix did not have last year. Engram, who only played 9 games, had 4 fewer receptions than all of the Broncos tight ends combined. Now when you factor in a healthy 2023 for Engram, and look at the stats versus all of Denver's tight ends combined the past 2 seasons, he blows them out of the water. This is a really good signing for the Broncos. I'm not trying to pass it off as, hey, I've all of a sudden done a complete 180 on this signing. My reaction to the signing was, I like it because you improved from your previous tight end room. That should be the goal in free agency. Improve your roster. Is your roster better with Engram or without Evan Engram on it? I think it's better with Engram. Now, the only thing I'm tapping the brakes on is I don't believe that Denver has now satisfied their Joker desire for Sean Payton. I probably sold Engram a little bit short on his ability to work, in terms of yards after the catch and just being a true slot receiver. He did a lot more of that than I gave him credit for, but I still think Engram is not quite the Joker that Sean Payton probably had in mind, or not even Sean Payton had in mind, but as a collective Broncos country, we had in mind when Payton first put out the words, I want a Joker, and now we can't go one video without saying those words. So I still think that there is room to grow in that department, but don't get it twisted. Denver is better with Evan Engram because he is miles ahead of all the other tight ends on this roster. Now, let me ask you this quick question here before we get into the final portion of today's episode. What do you think Denver's first pick should be in the draft this year? A running back or a tight end? We're going to put out a mock draft post free agency in a little bit, so come back to the channel to watch that, and you'll see what I think the Broncos will do, not what I would do, because now we really need to separate what I would do versus what I think Denver will do, because we have enough data here between the combine and free agency to put together a reasonable guess as to what direction the Broncos are going to head in April. By the way, if you're wondering what's the cap situation like now for the Broncos, this is from Over the Cap. They have them at $15.6 million. The Talanoa Hufanga contract details are not in yet. That has $20 million guaranteed. I'm guessing similar to Greenlaw. A lot of that will be in the first year. Probably not all of it like like Greenlaw, but a lot of it. But I still look at it as a 2-year, $20 million contract. So once those details hit the books, that $15.6 million is going to go down most likely. Before we sign off, we have one more quick thing I wanted to reiterate, or talk about. However, make sure you check out this Broncos winter hat. They've got an incredible sale going on at Fanatics, not just for this piece of merchandise, but a lot of other fun gear as well. So if you want to stock up on some Broncos winter gear while they're doing a huge clearance sale, go to chatsports.com/DEN hat. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. Now, I saw the guys over at DNVR were talking about where could Denver look in terms of receiver to complement some of the other roster additions they have made. And 2 names jumped out to me, Amari Cooper and Stephon Diggs. They've jumped out to me because, one, the notoriety. Everyone knows who these guys are. So these could be names that the Broncos target as veteran receivers who can really help a young, up-and-coming quarterback like Bo Nix. And I think there are some pros to both of these guys here, along with some cons, right? For Diggs, he's 30 years old now, and he's coming off a torn ACL. That's going to be a red flag for a lot of teams. And for Cooper, he put together monster 2022 and 2023 seasons and then fell off a cliff in 2024, playing almost all 17 games and only having 547 yards and 4 touchdowns. Whereas Diggs wasn't really on track for a huge year. If you take 8 games, multiply it by 2 and double all of his stats, we're looking at about 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns and some change. Not pedestrian numbers, but not usually the numbers we're accustomed to seeing when it comes to Diggs. I don't dislike the idea of Denver going after a veteran receiver. I was pretty consistent and adamant last week that I did not expect Denver to be very aggressive in their pursuit of Cooper Kupp, and I would maintain the same thinking for Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, or any other veteran wide receiver out there. I believe Sean and George Paton are much more confident in their receiver room than your average Broncos fan online gives them credit for. I think they are very excited to see what Marvin Mims can do in year 3 after a strong finish to year 2. Same goes for rookies or second-year players Devon Vele and Troy Franklin. Now, you got Cortland Sutton entering a contract year. That's going to be something the Broncos have to work through. But right now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll say 4.5 receivers. Trent Sherfield was signed to be primarily a special teamer. He had less than 100 yards last year for the Vikings. So there's going to be another name or 2 or 3 that joins the receiver room between now and training camp. Definitely someone in the draft and probably one more name in free agency. And then you go into training camp with some UDFA receivers, and you got about 8 or 9 guys realistically competing for about 5 to 6 spots. So watch for another wide receiver, or another wide receiver signing. Don't get your hopes up for a big, expensive, sexy name. If Diggs and Cooper's price drops dramatically, then I could see Sean Payton playing ball with that. But I don't think they're looking to make a big signing at that position based on the young players they have in the roster. So we got away from this last week because of all the chaos with free agency, but name a random FBS team. I just kind of want to go full college mode with March Madness getting underway at the end of the week here. So we'll start today with just a random FBS team. I did not come prepared with one, but now I've got one in mind. So let's see if we say the same name at the same time. I'm going to count down in 3, 2, 1. Virginia Tech. Hokies, yeah. Random. No rhyme or reason behind it. So that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see everyone later.